Snow covered the road to Ashbourne Manor like a burial cloth the night Adrian Mercer arrived there. Not soft snow, not beautiful snow, the kind that erased tire tracks within minutes and swallowed sound until the world felt abandoned by the living. Adrian drove slowly through the forest road with both hands tight around the steering wheel, while static whispered faintly from the van radio beside him. He had tried turning the radio off twice already. The whispering always came back. Some nights he thought the sound was electrical interference. Other nights, usually the sleepless ones, it sounded almost human. He rubbed tired fingers against his eyes. 3 hours of sleep in 2 days. Coffee instead of dinner. Another emergency repair job in another rich family's dying mansion. His life had slowly become a collection of glowing monitors and empty rooms. The snowstorm thickened around the van. Tall black pines leaned over the road like cathedral pillars disappearing into darkness. Headlights cut weak tunnels through the falling snow while old windshield wipers dragged rhythmically across the glass. Adrian hated roads like this. Too isolated, too quiet. Places where sound traveled strangely. Places where old houses waited. His phone vibrated softly in the cup holder. A message from his ex-wife remained open from weeks ago. "You trust recordings more than people." Adrian looked away immediately. Clara always knew exactly where to place the knife. She had not screamed during the divorce. That would have been easier. Instead, she had simply looked exhausted, like someone slowly drowning beside a man too obsessed with shadows to notice water rising. Adrian swallowed hard and focused on the road again. Then he saw the manor. It emerged gradually through snowfall and darkness enormous against the frozen landscape. Stone towers stretched upward beneath the storm, while pale lights flickered weakly behind tall windows. Ashbourne Manor looked less like a home and more like something preserved after death. The iron gates already stood open. That unsettled Adrian immediately. He parked near the front steps and killed the engine. Silence consumed everything. No wind, no birds, nothing. Even the static from the radio had stopped. For several seconds, Adrian remained inside the van staring at the manor. Something about the house felt wrong in a way he could not explain logically. Not dangerous. Watching. The front door opened before he reached it. A woman stood there beneath warm yellow light. Eleanor Graves looked older than the photograph attached to the service request. Early 40s, perhaps. Pale skin, dark hair, pinned carelessly behind tired eyes that had not slept much recently. She wore black, even though the funeral had supposedly happened days earlier. "You're late," she said, softly. Adrian frowned slightly. The roads were nearly buried. Eleanor stepped aside without responding. Warm air drifted from inside the manor, carrying the scent of candle wax dust and something faintly metallic beneath it all. Old wiring, perhaps. Or old blood. Adrian carried his equipment cases into the entrance hall while Eleanor closed the door behind him. The manor interior looked magnificent. And dead. Portraits lined the walls beneath flickering lamps. Chandeliers hung like frozen skeletons above polished floors. Long corridors stretched endlessly beyond shadow. And everywhere, cameras. Small black security cameras watched from corners, ceilings, staircases. Far too many. Adrian noticed immediately that several had been physically disconnected. Wires hung loose from walls. Some lenses had been smashed. Yet monitors in the security room still glowed faintly through a half-open doorway nearby. "That system shouldn't even be running," Adrian muttered. Eleanor stood beside the staircase, watching him carefully. "I only need one thing restored." Her voice sounded detached, controlled, like someone forcing herself to remain functional through grief. Adrian nodded. The request mentioned footage. Eleanor's eyes shifted toward the dark hallway behind him. 2:17 a.m. Nothing else. Just the time. Adrian set down his cases. What happened at 2:17? Silence lingered too long before Eleanor finally answered. "My father disappeared." A cold sensation moved slowly through Adrian's chest. Disappeared. He was in his study one moment, then gone. She said it plainly. No dramatics. That frightened Adrian more than hysteria would have. "Police searched the estate for 2 days," Eleanor continued quietly. "Nothing." Adrian glanced toward the security room again. "And you think the cameras recorded something?" "I know they did." The way she said it made him uncomfortable. Not hopeful. Certain. Eleanor led him through the manor toward the security room. Their footsteps echoed softly through endless halls, while candlelight trembled along old wallpaper. Every clock Adrian passed had stopped. 2:17. Exactly. He noticed it on a grandfather clock first, then a wall clock, then a silver pocket watch resting open on a side table, all frozen at the same minute. Adrian finally stopped walking. Did someone reset these? Eleanor looked at him strangely. They stopped on their own. The security room waited at the far end of the western hallway. Dozens of monitors covered the walls, some still glowing despite disconnected wiring. Static crawled across several screens while others displayed frozen images of empty hallways. Adrian knelt beside the main recording system. Ancient equipment, modified repeatedly over decades. This system should have failed years ago, he said. It didn't. He connected his laptop and began pulling archived footage from the hard drives. Hours of recordings flooded the screen. Mostly empty corridors, dark staircases, candle-lit rooms. The manor looked unnaturally silent even during daytime. No servants, no visitors, just Eleanor, occasionally crossing hallways alone like a ghost trapped inside inheritance. Adrian clicked through timestamps until he reached 2:17 a.m. from 3 nights earlier. The footage glitched immediately. Static distorted the image. Pixel corruption spread across every camera feed. That's strange, Adrian whispered. The audio track crackled faintly through his headphones. At first he heard only interference. Then footsteps, slow footsteps echoing through the upstairs corridor. Adrian frowned. No visual contact, he muttered. Yet the footsteps continued clearly. One step, another, then breathing. Someone breathing very close to the microphone. Adrian adjusted the audio levels carefully. A voice whispered through static. "Don't look behind you." Adrian froze. The whisper sounded male. Old. Very close. He instinctively removed one headphone and glanced over his shoulder toward the security room doorway. Empty. Only darkness in the hallway beyond. "You heard it?" Eleanor asked quietly from behind him. Adrian turned sharply. "I thought you left." "I heard it too." She looked pale now, frightened despite trying not to show it. Adrian replayed the audio. Again, the footsteps echoed through empty footage. Again, the breathing. Then the whisper, "Don't look behind you." The final word distorted unnaturally, stretching longer than human speech should allow. Adrian rubbed tired eyes. Someone could have tampered with the files. Eleanor did not answer. Instead, she pointed slowly toward another monitor. "Watch the hallway camera." Adrian clicked open. Camera 6. Second floor east hallway. Empty. Timestamp 2:17 a.m. Static drifted slowly across the image. Then, for less than a second, a figure appeared near the far end of the corridor. Tall, thin, standing perfectly still. Adrian immediately paused the footage. The image warped violently. The figure vanished. He rewound frame by frame carefully. Nothing. Hallway empty again. "What the hell?" Eleanor stepped closer beside him. "He appears every time you pause." Adrian looked up at her. "That's impossible. Do it again." Against his better judgment, Adrian replayed the footage. The hallway remained empty. Then another flicker. The figure appeared again. Closer now. Much closer. Adrian paused immediately. This time the image froze perfectly. The figure stood halfway down the corridor, tall enough its head nearly touched the chandelier above. Its body looked wrong somehow. Too narrow. Arms too long. Its face hidden completely in shadow. Adrian felt cold spread through his stomach. Jesus. He advanced one frame forward. The figure moved closer. Another frame. Closer again. Each paused frame brought it nearer to the camera. Nearer to him. Eleanor whispered softly. "My father kept saying the cameras were watching something move through the house." Adrian's pulse quickened. He advanced another frame. The figure now stood directly before the camera. Its face remained hidden beneath darkness. But Adrian could see one horrifying detail clearly. The figure was not looking down the hallway. It was looking directly out of the screen. At him. Then, slowly, very slowly, something appeared behind the camera. A hand, resting against the wall just beside the lens. Human fingers. Pale. Long. And in the final frozen frame, at exactly 2:17 a.m., Adrian realized the impossible truth. Someone had been standing directly behind the camera the entire time. watching the hallway, watching the figure, watching him. And then through the monitor speakers, a voice whispered softly into Adrian's headphones, "I told you not to look behind you." The man in the footage. Adrian Mercer ripped the headphones from his ears so violently that the cable snapped against the desk. The whisper still echoed inside his skull. "I told you not to look behind you." The security room fell silent, except for the low electrical hum of dying monitors. Snow scratched softly against the manor windows. Adrian stared at the frozen hallway frame on the screen before him. The figure inside the footage remained motionless behind the camera. Watching him, not the hallway, not the manor, him. Beside him, Eleanor Graves stood perfectly still, her pale face illuminated by static light. "You heard it this time," she whispered. Adrian swallowed hard. That audio could have been inserted. Even as he said it, the explanation sounded pathetic. The whisper had not sounded recorded. It had sounded present, close enough to breathe against his neck. Adrian turned sharply toward the doorway behind him. Empty hallway, dim candlelight, nothing else. Still, he no longer trusted empty rooms. He forced himself back toward the monitors. "Your father," he said carefully. "Tell me exactly what happened before he disappeared." Eleanor hesitated, then slowly sat beside the long desk filled with outdated equipment. He became obsessed with the cameras. Her voice sounded tired beyond exhaustion. At first, he only checked them at night, then he stopped sleeping entirely. Adrian's chest tightened slightly. "That sounded familiar." Eleanor continued softly. "He said the house was recording things before they happened." The monitors flickered. Static crawled across. Camera 6 again. Adrian kept his eyes fixed on the footage. "Paranoia can escalate quickly in isolated environments," he muttered. Eleanor looked at him strangely. "You don't believe that?" Adrian didn't answer. Because Clara had once accused him of the same thing. Too many nights replaying recordings frame by frame. Too many hours staring into dark corners searching for movement that probably wasn't there. "You trust recordings more than people." The memory hit him harder inside Ashbourne Manor, because now the recordings were staring back. The lights in the security room dimmed suddenly. All 12 monitors flickered at once. Then every screen changed simultaneously. Not static, not camera footage, just one image. A dark hallway somewhere inside the manor Adrian did not recognize. The timestamp blinking beneath it read 2:17 a.m. Adrian frowned. "That camera isn't listed." Eleanor slowly stood. Her face had gone pale again. "We removed that hallway years ago." Cold moved through Adrian's stomach. "What?" The screen distorted faintly. The hidden hallway stretched endlessly beneath weak candlelight. Portraits lined the walls. Tall windows overlooked black forest outside. And standing at the far end was the figure. Tall, unnaturally thin, still too distant for details. Adrian leaned closer unconsciously. The figure moved. Not walking, gliding slightly nearer between flickers of static. Eleanor whispered. "My father called it the Watcher." The room temperature dropped sharply. Adrian could suddenly see faint breath leaving his mouth. "That's impossible," he muttered. Then the audio activated by itself. Static hissed softly through hidden speakers. Footsteps echoed through the hallway footage. One step. Another. Slow. Patient. Then came breathing. Closer than before. And beneath the breathing another sound. A woman crying softly. Adrian's blood turned cold, because he recognized the crying immediately. Clara. Not exactly her voice, perhaps, but close enough to split something open inside him. The footage crackled violently. The figure appeared much closer now, its head tilted slightly toward the camera, toward Adrian. The speakers whispered, "She left because you kept watching." Adrian stood up instantly. "No." Eleanor looked frightened now. What did it say? Adrian ignored her. His pulse hammered painfully inside his throat. The speakers crackled again. You watched recordings instead of her face. The room suddenly felt suffocating, because it was true. Near the end of the marriage, Adrian spent more nights inside surveillance offices than beside Clara in bed, watching strangers, watching empty hallways, watching shadows, searching endlessly for proof that something unseen moved through the world. Clara once asked him during an argument, if you saw a ghost on camera, would that finally make you happy? At the time, he laughed. Now, he wasn't sure. The hidden hallway footage distorted again. For a single frame, the figure vanished. Then Adrian saw why. It was no longer at the end of the hallway. It stood directly in front of the camera now, its face hidden beneath moving darkness, its hand resting gently against the lens. And slowly, very slowly, the figure lifted one finger toward its mouth. Silence. Adrian's breathing stopped. The speakers whispered, "Don't let it hear you." Every monitor in the room suddenly went black. Complete darkness swallowed them. Eleanor gasped softly. Somewhere deep inside the manor, a door slammed shut. Then another. Then another. Boom. 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 The house echoed like a living thing waking up. Adrian grabbed his flashlight immediately. The beam cut weakly across the room. Dust drifted through cold air. The monitors remained dead now. No static, no image, nothing. "What the hell is happening here?" Adrian whispered. Eleanor looked toward the hallway outside. "He only appeared after my mother died." Adrian turned toward her slowly. "What?" "She died in this house 3 years ago." Her voice shook slightly for the first time. "My father became obsessed with reviewing old recordings afterward. He said the cameras kept capturing someone standing behind her in reflections." The flashlight trembled faintly in Adrian's grip. He thought grief was making him hallucinate. Eleanor swallowed hard. Then the camera started recording him talking to empty rooms. Silence settled heavily between them. Snow continued falling outside the manor. Soft. Merciless. Adrian suddenly heard static again. Not from the monitors. From somewhere inside the walls. Faint electrical whispering moving through hidden wires beneath the manor. The sound traveled slowly down the hallway outside the security room. Like breathing inside old pipes. Then came footsteps. Real footsteps. Directly outside the door. Adrian swung the flashlight toward the entrance instantly. Nothing there. But the footsteps continued anyway. One step, another, passing slowly beyond the doorway. The beam revealed only empty corridor. Yet the sound remained perfectly clear. Eleanor backed away from the door. It knows when someone watches the footage. Adrian felt anger rise suddenly. Not courage. Anger. Fear always became anger eventually inside him. "No," he snapped. "Somebody's manipulating the system." His voice echoed too loudly inside the dark room. The footsteps stopped immediately. Silence. Then the whisper came again. This time not through speakers. Directly behind him. "You keep looking at the wrong screen." Adrian spun around violently. Nobody stood there. But on the black monitor nearest him, a reflection appeared. Not of the security room. Another room. A bedroom. Clara sat alone on the edge of a bed, crying quietly. Adrian froze. His flashlight slipped slightly in his hand. Clara. The reflection. Clara lifted her head slowly. Mascara streaked beneath exhausted eyes. "You were never really with me anymore," she whispered. Adrian stared in horror. "That's not real." Reflection. Clara looked past him suddenly, towards something standing behind Adrian. Her face changed instantly. Fear. Real fear. "Don't turn around," she whispered. Adrian's body locked completely still. The security room had become deathly cold. He could feel presence behind him now. Tall, silent, watching. The static inside the walls grew louder. Eleanor whispered from somewhere near the doorway. "Adrian." He could not move. Because deep inside himself, beneath logic and exhaustion and pride, he already knew. The thing in the footage had never been trapped inside the cameras. The cameras were only teaching it how to watch. A soft, wet sound came from directly behind his shoulder. Breathing. Then a voice identical to his own whispered into his ear. "You finally looked back." The house that watched back Adrian Mercer did not turn around. Every muscle in his body locked violently, as the voice using his own tone whispered beside his ear. "You finally looked back." The security room inside Ashbourne Manor had become impossibly cold. Not winter cold. Not natural cold. The kind of cold that belonged inside morgues and abandoned hospitals after midnight. Adrian stared forward at the black monitors, while static whispered faintly through the walls around him. He could feel something standing directly behind him. Tall. Still. Watching. His flashlight trembled weakly in his hand. Across the room, Eleanor Graves looked frozen with terror near the doorway. "Adrian," she whispered. "Don't move," he said quietly. The thing behind him inhaled slowly. Its breathing sounded wet. almost electrical, like air passing through broken wires. Then the monitors flickered back on all at once. Every screen displayed Adrian from behind. Live footage. Security angles from every hallway surrounding the room. And in each recording, something stood directly behind him. Too tall, too thin. Its shape shifted slightly between frames, like damaged footage, struggling to remain human. Adrian felt nausea rise through him, because the cameras were showing him something his eyes still refused to see. The whisper came again. You spent years searching for proof. The lights dimmed lower, and now you won't look at it. Adrian shut his eyes briefly. His pulse hammered painfully against his ribs. Clara's voice echoed through memory. You trust recordings more than people. He suddenly understood why. Because recordings never left. People did. The thing behind him laughed softly, using his own voice. Then the laughter changed. Clara's voice. Eleanor's. An old man's. A child crying. Static swallowed them all together. Adrian turned. Not out of courage. Out of exhaustion. The thing stood inches away. His flashlight beam revealed only fragments of it clearly. Limbs too long for the human frame. Skin moving beneath darkness like old film burning inside a projector. And its face kept changing. Adrian. Clara. Eleanor. An old woman. Then no face at all. Only shifting static where features should have been. Adrian staggered backward into the desk. What are you? He whispered. The creature tilted its head unnaturally. The monitors surrounding them crackled. Then every screen began replaying old footage from Adrian's life. Clara sleeping alone in bed while Adrian reviewed recordings at 3 a.m. Adrian ignoring phone calls while obsessively enhancing shadows on security tapes. Clara standing in the apartment doorway holding a suitcase. Crying quietly while Adrian stared at another screen instead of her. The creature whispered. You watched everything except the people leaving you. Adrian's chest tightened painfully. No. But the creature was right. Even now standing inside a haunted manor beside a living woman terrified out of her mind, part of Adrian still wanted to understand the footage more than escape the house. That realization horrified him more than the creature itself. Eleanor suddenly stepped forward. My father saw it too, she whispered. The creature slowly turned its shifting face toward her. Eleanor's voice trembled now. He thought if he kept recording it, he could understand it. The monitors changed again. New footage appeared. Ashbourne Manor. 3 nights earlier. 2:17 a.m. Eleanor's father sat alone inside the security room, surrounded by screens, exhausted eyes glowing beneath static light. He looked exactly like Adrian looked now. Obsessed, sleepless, dying slowly beneath surveillance. The old man whispered toward the cameras. What do you want? The creature appeared behind him in the footage, watching silently. Then the recording distorted violently. The old man began screaming. Not from pain, from recognition. Adrian stared in horror as the old man looked directly into the camera and shouted, It uses what you regret most. The footage cut to black. Eleanor covered her mouth with trembling fingers. I found that clip after he disappeared. Silence settled heavily through the room. Then the creature spoke softly. You invited me every time you replayed loneliness. The words sank into Adrian slowly. Every sleepless night, every dark hallway, every obsessive replay of empty footage searching for hidden movement. The cameras had never captured the creature by accident. Attention fed it. Isolation strengthened it. Grief gave it shape. Adrian finally understood the true horror of Ashbourne Manor. The house itself was not haunted. The cameras were, not the machines. The watching, the endless human need to replay pain until it became alive again. The creature stepped closer. Static spread slowly across its skin like infection. We live inside what people cannot stop revisiting. The walls around the security room groaned violently. Every monitor now displayed endless reflections of Adrian turning toward the creature again and again and again. Different angles, different timelines, an eternity of looking back. The creature whispered, You taught yourself to love recordings more than memory. Clara appeared on one of the screens again. Not crying now, just tired. You were disappearing long before I left, she said softly. Adrian felt something inside him finally crack open. Not fear, grief. Real grief. Not for losing Clara, for wasting her while he still had her. The creature leaned closer. Its face became Adrian's again. "Keep watching," it whispered. The monitors flickered violently, and suddenly, Adrian saw the truth hidden beneath the static. Hundreds of faces moved inside the creature. Lonely people. Obsessed people. People who watched and replayed and isolated themselves until the thing slowly learned their voices. Ashbourne Manor had not created it. Human loneliness had. The creature reached toward Adrian slowly. Its fingers looked unfinished, like hands built from damaged footage. Adrian closed his eyes. Then quietly, for the first time in years, he reached into his pocket and turned off his phone completely. The creature stopped moving. Adrian opened his eyes again. Eleanor stared at him in confusion. Adrian looked toward the monitors. One by one, he began shutting them down. The creature twitched violently. Static burst across its body. "What are you doing?" Eleanor whispered. Adrian pulled cables loose from the wall. "I think," he said softly, "it survives because people keep feeding it attention." The creature screamed. Not loudly, deeply, like corrupted audio tearing apart. The security room lights exploded overhead. Glass rained across the floor. The creature lunged suddenly, and Adrian smashed the main recording server onto the ground. Sparks erupted instantly. Every monitor went black. Complete darkness swallowed the room. Then, silence. Not static silence. Real silence. The kind Adrian had forgotten existed. For several seconds, neither he nor Eleanor moved. Then, slowly, warmth returned to the room. The pressure inside the manor lifted slightly, and somewhere far away inside the house, a door quietly closed. Adrian exhaled shakily. Snow continued falling outside. Soft, endless. Eleanor whispered, "Is it gone?" Adrian looked toward the dead monitors. "No," he said, honestly. "I don't think things like that disappear." He looked at his reflection, faintly visible inside the black screen. But maybe they starve. Morning arrived pale and cold over Ashbourne Manor. Adrian left just after sunrise. The snowstorm had ended during the night, leaving the forest buried beneath silver light. Before driving away, Eleanor stopped him beside the gate. "You never asked what happened to my father." Adrian looked toward the manor one last time. Dark windows, silent cameras, frozen time. "I think," he said quietly, "he kept watching too long." Eleanor's eyes filled with tears she had been holding back for years. Adrian almost said something comforting. Instead, he simply nodded and left. Months later, Adrian moved to a smaller apartment in another city. He stopped taking surveillance restoration jobs, stopped reviewing footage obsessively at night, stopped rewinding loneliness over and over, looking for hidden ghosts. Some nights he still woke suddenly, at exactly 2:17 a.m., heart racing, certain someone stood beside the bed watching him. But he never looked immediately anymore, because sometimes the most dangerous thing in the world is the human need to keep replaying what should have been allowed to die. And years later, when an abandoned security archive burned down outside Prague, investigators discovered something strange inside the melted hard drives. Hundreds of corrupted video files. Every file showed empty hallways, empty rooms, empty staircases. But in the final frame of every recording, a tall figure stood directly behind the camera, watching silently, waiting for someone to look back.